I got to talk a few minutes about the history of Sunday school, because when I did some research, what I found deeply impacted the way that I did ministry from that point on. Here's the deal. In the 1700s, Christians and churches began to see a need among the working poor who didn't have an opportunity for education. And so what they did is they brought literacy courses using the Bible to parts of their community and opened up these schools on Sunday, the one day in the culture where nobody was working, where it was actually a day of rest. And so kids and people of all ages were coming to these classes led by the church. It met such a practical need in society that it started to blow up. It eventually trickled over to the U.S. Folks like D.L. Moody and so many others even went as far as to renting out abandoned bars and turning those into Sunday schools where teens, kids, and people of different ages were coming on Sunday to get the education through the Bible on literacy by Christians in ways that they never had before. Well, by the mid-1900s, with the invention of the teenager, adolescence, and the court mandating that kids stay in school longer, churches began to see, well, wait a minute, maybe there's a need here for us to provide separate ministry or outreaches specifically to these teens and young adults. And so we see youth ministry kind of coming together. Well, here we are at the 20th century, into the 21st century, and young people are abandoning church and have been for a long time. Here in Austin, where we live, over 90% of the teens and young adults do not attend church anymore. Why? What happened? Why such a radical shift? And it really was a gradual fade more than a radical shift, but the writing's been on the wall. Well, here's the thing. Man, today, spiritual growth and development is not a perceived need. Here's the reality. As the church, we began by meeting practical perceived needs first. Spiritual growth and development was the byproduct of what we initially set out to do, which was go in and meet a practical need. So what exactly are these perceived practical needs that we can meet? Well, it's community, it's identity, it's purpose. And a lot of that really hasn't changed, but the way we go about meeting them needs to. Yes, teens and young people need community. They still crave it, but they're not craving the community to revolve around spiritual growth and development. The community has to revolve around something different that actually meets their practical perceived needs. Yeah, they want to know their identity, who they were made to be uniquely in this world and why it matters. And when it comes to purpose, they need to know that their life matters, that there's a unique design there, and that what they can do in this world is going to go on to make a significant difference. And yes, there's spiritual implications to that, but that's not where we start, right? If we really want to capture the minds and hearts of this generation, we start with their practical perceived needs and find a way to meet those without leading with the spiritual. And in case you haven't been watching the news lately, as the church, we kind of represent one of the biggest things that this next generation is against and doesn't see a need for, and that is authority. Every single form of authority in this world has let them down. Marriages have fallen apart, right? Police are on the news for doing illegal things, beatings, all kinds of stuff going on. It's a mess out there. Teachers are getting arrested for having sex with students. Pastors are in the news for scandals, embezzlement, adultery. Politicians are as corrupt as they've ever been before. And when it comes to the church, and we lead with the Bible as the ultimate authority, what does that speak to a generation who's been burned by all forms of authority? So if we really want to rewind the clock and learn from what the first churches did when we created this idea of Sunday school in capturing and meeting practical needs, then what we need to do is, one, stop and study the needs of young people in our community. The second thing we need to do is we need to pick one of those areas, and we need to ask ourselves, as an organization, as a church, how can we, with our resources, our gifts and talents, uniquely step in and meet this practical need? All right, number 3, you want to create a what's next strategy plan. After you've been meeting a need for a consistent period of time, the answer isn't, oh, we went in there, we met a need, we helped them read, we helped them get classes, we helped them do this or that. Now we want to invite them to church and a Bible study. Man, it doesn't work that way, right? You need to build relationships and show up in people's lives, because what the world knows of Christians is one thing: we got an agenda. We want to see everybody converted. At least that's how it's perceived, right? But we know that's not really our heart. Our heart truly cares, and it takes time to communicate that. So if you're going in and jumping in, meeting a practical need, and then you're skipping over to, now come to our Bible study, right? Look at it from their perspective. That's not the best what's next strategy. We can help you with that. And finally, whatever you choose to do, commit to doing it for at least 1 year. The biggest knock against Christians is that we love to do these events and show up for these one-time evangelisms, and whatever it is, we'll pass out the tracts, the Bibles, whatever, and hey, if someone gives their life to Jesus, awesome. But what we're not willing to do is show up every day, every week, week after week, month after month, and really meet those needs. And that's what you need to do. You need to commit to it for at least a year before you evaluate anything else. And when I looked at the history of where we came from with youth ministry, Sunday school, these are the things that spoke to my heart. We created a philosophy and strategy around the points that I'm telling you right now, and it made an enormous difference. We'd love to tell you more. Comment below on your thoughts, subscribe to our channel, reach out to us, and let's continue this conversation.